Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and we're going to be continuing our journey through all the Lodash functions. And now we're going to be going through the lang functions, which just seem to be like casting values and doing different checks. So we'll kind of go through those. Okay, so let's start off with cast array, which is pretty straightforward. It just takes a value and turns it into an array. So let me clear up a lot of this from the previous videos. Boop, boop. Okay, so basically what this would do is, let's say I want to take cast array. I want to cast the number 5 into an array. It'll just return me an array with the number 5. That's what it does. Okay. Next is clone. This method is loosely based on a structured clone algorithm, but let's just see here. Var objects shallow equals clone objects 0. So let's just see what we end up doing. So if I were to clone my array, what do I get? It should just be a copy. Now, if I were just I wanted to see what happens, because it seems like the next one's clone deep, so that implies there's going to be something with nested arrays. So I'm going to try to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's see what happens if I try to clone this. What does it do? Okay, so it only clones up to like one layer. Didn't clone all that very, very last array. Although, what's with the random parentheses here? I don't remember doing that, but let's see here. Let's get rid of that parentheses. 1, 2, 3, 4, comma. And then get rid of these parentheses. If I hit save, let's try that clone thing again. Make sure that. Oh no, it cloned the whole thing. Okay, so it just clones it. Okay. That's pretty straightforward. So clone deep. Clones value. Okay. Clone values are just deep clones it recursively, so I'm assuming it matters more for like really deeply nested objects. Clones value function, and here I guess you clone it, but you can actually customize the cloning, so it seems kind of like a map-ish type thing. So we're going to clone the document body, and then the customizer if is element value clone node, so only will clone the nodes. Okay, so I mean, bottom line is clone just makes a copy. Okay, let's just keep it simple. Conforms to, sounds like a validation type thing. Checks if the object conforms to source by invoking the predicate properties of source with the corresponding values of the object to inspect. Okay, so we're comparing two objects. So, let's say, does my obj, well, first conforms to, okay, and the idea is that first it's my obj, so we're going to say this is the object we're checking, and we want to say does it conform to, we'll say obj array 0, so the first object with Alex. Okay, and it won't, because again this has two extra properties that the original one doesn't, so I imagine this is going to return false. Save. Or return an error. Predicate is not a function. Interesting. Let's take a look. Obj r 0, but let's say the predicate needs to be a function. Conforms to my object and obj are 0. So that should be those both objects, the source object. Object. Return. Oh, okay, I see. I see. So what you're doing is you're checking an individual property, okay, of the object. So basically, I would be doing this, returning an object that, let's say, name, and then we do something like you know, oh, actually, we'll just use age. Age is greater than 30, and let me just see the exact syntax it used. Function, oh, so it throws a function in there. So we use a function, value returns whether value is greater than 30, and that should return true. So what's going to do is going to take this object, look for the age property, and see if this function test returns true or false. Missing that, delete a parentheses, I think I did. Save. True. Okay, because my age is after 30. So it allows you to test individual properties of an object, which that can be useful. And I'm assuming you can test multiple properties. Let me, I guess, give that a shot. So let's say we put age there. And then we'll pass in name, value equals Bob, which that will not be the case. So it'll return me false or an error. Let's see. It'll return me false. So if it doesn't pass all the tests. Now if I change this to Alex, would it return me true? Yep, okay. That's actually pretty useful. So I like that function. Now let's keep moving on to the next one. Conforms to, okay, this is probably equals, like greater than or equal than. So let's see here. Same value comparison between two values to determine if they are equivalent. Okay, so this is just literally test if it's equals, and if it's not, it gives you back false. So, and then this is just greater than GT. So is one greater than the other? That's fine. Greater than equal than. So those are all pretty straightforward. Is arguments. Let's see here. Checks if value is likely an arguments object. Okay. Function return arguments. Okay. Unless you really use the arguments object anymore, this is not useful. It just checks if the value is an arguments object, which is a specific type of argument that occurs when you use like ES5 function syntax, and you put in as many arguments as you want. They all get plopped into this array object thing called the arguments object. So that is array. Okay, that's just going to tell you if it's an array and return you if it's true or false. If it's an array, that's fine. That's pretty cool. Is array buffer. Checks if values classified as an array buffer object. I've never actually used an array buffer object for any reason. I have a feeling, if I remember right, an array buffer is an array you declare of specific size. So you actually sit there and say, hey, I want to make this new array with 2 spots in it. So that way it's a little bit more like performant, because it's not, you're creating an actual sort of structured, or in most languages you have an array and you specify the number of spots in the array and the type of data in the array, so that way the proper amount of memory is allocated to fit that data. Okay, because memory. Now what you can do, kind of like what Go does, is they have something called a slice, which isn't necessarily an array, but a reference to where an array exists. And because of that, since it's just a reference, it can dynamically resize the array, and you have kind of like the way in JavaScript. In JavaScript, that's just the default. An array is just what does a slice and go. It's a reference to where that array is in memory. So the array buffer, if I remember I remember reading this once, I think it's when you just want to like hard code the size of the array, so that way you don't have to worry about some of the extra memory inefficiencies of having sort of that reference with objects and arrays. Something like that. So if you were using those and you wanted to check that your data type is that, you could use this function. All these is functions are just saying, is it like this? Now, is array like checks if value is array like. A value is considered array like if it's not a function and has a value dot length. That's integer greater. So string would be array like. So yeah, true. Document dot body dot children, because that returns an array of DOM elements. That's actually an array. Nope. Well, we haven't gotten to nope yet, so, but apparently it does not return you anything that's array-like. Is array-like object. So this object is array-like, except it also checks if the value is an object. So it checks if it's an array or an object, which, okay. Now, since a string is array-like, but it's technically not an object, it's a primitive value. In that case, that's going to return false. Well, pretty much everything else is an object. Okay, even arrays are objects. So that's the only difference there. It's checking whether it's an object and array-like. So basically excludes strings. Is it a Boolean value? So is it true or false? Is it a buffer? So if it's a buffer type, again, this starts getting into a lot of the sort of more unique JavaScript types that I probably really never use. Is it a date? So if you're using date objects, you can check if it's a date using this. Is it a DOM element? So is element. So you can check all these things. But all these are just really Boolean checks. Is it empty? So is this like basically like 0 or null or something? Is it equal? Performs a decomparison between two values to determine if they are equivalent. This method supports comparing arrays. So here you can compare collections. So that's the benefit of is equal. Okay. Is equal with. So here you're going to have a little custom function to help interfere with the comparison. So basically you'll say, hey, run this function for each value, and then if the resulting values are equal, then they're equal. So they may have different absolute values. So like one may be 2, another one might be 4. But you might do a function that says, well, if they're both even, then they are equal. Yeah. Is error. Okay, is it an error object? So again, all these are just Booleans. Is it that? Is it finite? So meaning it's not infinite. Okay. Is function value, is it a function? Okay, true or false. Is it an integer? So I mean, I think you guys get the idea there. Is length. Okay. Okay, so the idea is this a length property? Okay, is it a map? So a map is this another key value type object that exists in JavaScript. Is it a match? Some matches, what sources? It just checks if these two things match each other. Okay, so in this case you have our variable object b1 and b2. So we have object, and then we have another object with b2, okay, and they match because the properties that they do share match. Even though it doesn't have a, the second object, in this case b has 1, so they don't match. And then here's and then every time you see with, you always have that sort of customizer function at the end, just as a, so it's just the same thing with the customizer function. Try to look for anything kind of novel that isn't straightforward. Is nan, is it not a number? True or false. So again, all these is are just, they just return a true or false based on whether something's true. Is it a native value? So basically, is it an integer string? Okay. Is nil? Is it worth nil? Is it null? Is number? So there's one for everything. Is object? Is object like? Let's go back to is object like for a moment. Checks if value is object like. If value object like if it's not null and has a type of result of object. So this could be classes and stuff. Is plain object, checks the value of plain object, that is an object created with the object constructor or one with a prototype of null. So that means it's not any class that any object that's inherited from another object, meaning it has a prototype of another object. If you aren't familiar with prototypes, that won't mean anything. Is it a regular expression? Checks that the value is classified as a regular expression. Neat. Is safe integer. Okay, well, I'm just kind of move past all these. This is pretty. Sets just an object. It's basically an object that takes a collection of values with all unique values. String is a string. Symbol. Symbols always still kind of confuse me. I mean, the idea is that it's like a unique value, but they make more sense in Ruby. But again, the same term, symbol, might mean something slightly different. In JavaScript, the only time I've really seen it is when you're creating iterators. Like if you want to create a custom, make an object that can use a for of loop, which is a really convoluted process. But it's something you can do. And let's see, like that's exactly what they use, symbol.iterator. That's the only symbol I ever see. I never see another one. But if you want to check if it is a symbol, you can check it. Is typed array. Okay, a typed array is one that takes a specific type. So you actually, there are objects in there. So that way you can only put in like integers. You can only put in strings into that array. Again, the benefit of using those is really like memory management. Otherwise, just using the standard arrays does the job pretty well. But again, there are those programs where you're looking for any little bit of performance. So to the extent where you can be more specific and allow JavaScript to manage memory better and garbage collect better, using things like weak maps, typed arrays, array buffers can help. Is undefined. The value of the check. Oh, if it's undefined. Is it a weak map? Is it a weak set? Less than or equal than. To array. Converts value to an array. So it turns into array. Can I turn an object to array with this? Yes, I can. So it'll take all the values and make it an array. So that's fine. I mean, basically the same thing. I can do the same thing with the to values or the values function on an object, but this works too. To finite. Converts value to a finite number. Okay, number min value, infinity. Guys, so I guess that's the highest number in JavaScript right there. Although they are adding something called big int in ES 2020. So that might be even bigger. Okay, to integer, so turn it into an integer. Let's take a look at some examples. If we want to turn 3.2, it turns into 3. 3.2, it turns into 3. Infinity turns into that. To length, number of minimum values. So I'm assuming it's getting 3 because there's 3 characters. 3.2, 3 because there's 3 characters. To number value, converts value to a number. Fine. To plain object. To a safe integer. Okay, so this is just all this is all converting stuff. Okay, now we're getting into math methods, which I'll do as a separate video. So, yay. See you guys later.